for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap-ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't missing my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues. Guess if you ain't at the table, you on the menu, and I'm that spitter, baby. They don't want you to see, but everybody's out the Capitol Hills rocking with me. Boys smoke the trays and ponder getting their life together. I'm comfortable with my role, so I'm like, whatever. Me? I ain't got a job, but I work hard. And you don't work hard, but you got a job. The irony is I'm judged while you feel the applause. I'm slept on, that's why I had to set this alarm. My dudes is armed, I'm armed with this arm charm. Body banging like she got that cream from Barry Bonds. Yeah.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
That Dre season is here, a real hitter with a mic, I'm everything that they fear. With that hood ain't the same, I was all on their ass, I'm level-headed. So yo, my dudes love when I spaz, and I'm so over Seattle's passive-aggressive attitude. They don't call you back, what they really saying is F you. While I'm from the same place, I move at a different pace. I prefer if you just said it to my face, damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Average dudes with they average spit, writing average rhymes, knocking average chicks. The closer I get, I can feel the people starting to shift. I'm loyal to a fault, and everybody can't come with. Rap's a rich man's game, I'm only playing with change. They bang models and singers, I'm knocking my old flame, I'm different. The crowd, I move with the chosen few. Black thoughts, I could be the front man for the roots. No diamonds and gold, I'm on my sticks and stones. If we can see your panty line, you should have on a thong. My team is strong, through this fire we forged a bond. And they already know what it is when I get on. To the hearse, party like it's December 31st. When I'm on my deathbed, I probably cracking my nurse. You ain't got the bars to compete. I'm a verbal athlete, deflating these boys so they say that I cheat. Damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Yeah. I should probably start by apologizing for the long wait, man. You know, I know I be tripping. But I'm not just a rapper, I'm an artist. And, you know, my creative process is a little bit different than most. Nonetheless, I want to welcome everybody out to the Dre's Experience. I got TCF in the building. My whole camp's here with me. I got the band in here laying this cool-ass vibe. And I'm Seattle's own. Let's get into it.
It is indeed the first of the month. Grand rising to all of y'all out there. Welcome to the Morning Update Show and a happy Wednesday to all of you out there. You are watching us right here, and I'm your co-host, Trey Holiday. And you know what? It's already starting off to be a great Wednesday for us over here at the Morning Update Show right here at Converge Media. And I'm excited to always be able to be doing this with my co-host with the most, Big O. What up, Big O?
Good morning, Trey Holiday. and yes, it is the first of the month.
Yes. I love that it's in there.
On the grind, got to get mine.
That's right.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, my friend?
I'm all right. 2021 might be the fastest year ever.
Ooh.
It's weird. Like it's September already. Can you believe that?
I know it is going by quickly. I think we've been so busy. That's what it is. You know, they say like time flies when you're having fun.
I guess it's fun.
Yeah.
We'll see. Just to give a rundown, what we're talking about today is, remember I told you that was on the press conference yesterday with Chief Diaz and Alex Peterson, Councilmember Peterson, and then Rex, I think Jones from Human Services. And so I got some clips from there, and we want to continue our discussion on this uptick in gun violence here that's impacting our city. Got a few other things to talk about as well. All right, everybody. want to remind you that right now is the perfect opportunity for you to tag and share the stream. Go ahead and tag and share the stream with people who you feel would appreciate culturally relevant news and information emanating from right here in the Emerald City. Want to give a big shout out to our partners over at the South Seattle Emerald and also KBCS 91.3 over, at Bellevue College. Reminding everybody that you can listen to the Morning Update Show anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast. They got SoundCloud there in the links, but you can also find us on Google and Spotify and iTunes and somewhere everywhere else. Trey Holiday is the first of the month. That's a good reminder to tell people that the COVID-19 vaccine is readily available throughout King County, really across America, but especially with folks that are right here on King County. We've got a link there in the comments. It's so many different places out there if you want to get the vaccine. In some cases, they'll even come to your house.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, the great thing about it is that we're seeing really good numbers across our county. And I think it really is because of the accessibility of the vaccine. It's out there. It's free. It's readily available, y'all.
Yeah, no, for sure. A great way to support Black-owned independent media while letting people know that it's no excuses is for you to visit whereweconverge.com/shop. And you can check that out right there. And, so the No Excuses shirts is coming around. It's a lot of people. They're picking them up. So, we will appreciate you guys. And that's definitely a good way to support us. Also want to remind everybody that we're also on LinkedIn now. You can watch the Morning Update Show on LinkedIn. To look for us there on LinkedIn and Converge Media LLC. And make sure and give us a follow there on LinkedIn. We want to build up our audience on the LinkedIn side. And our events calendar. Want to encourage people to, and what we got up there today. Today is actually down there at the waterfront. It's the stories that we carry. It's going on down at the Seattle waterfront, whereweconverge.com/events. And we want to encourage people, if you have an event out there, especially community-based event, you can go to whereweconverge.com, go to the bottom of the page, and you'll find a link there where it says event calendar submission. So we're able to do all that. Okay, now Trey, this is a world that you still living in here today. For a lot of people, the first day of school.
Absolutely. The first day of school for my sophomore now, who is at Federal Way High School. And he was excited this morning. I woke up, he was already dressed. He was ready to go. He had his fresh new fits on. He was feeling it. And it really reminds me of what it was like to be, a student and to remember like that first day of school. I mean, they've been out of school, really they had like 2 days a week last year that they could go into the building, but this is like full on. He's ready and he's prepared, man. I gotta say, I was excited to see his smile this morning.
Right. Well, lots of kids going back to school. And we want to remind everybody out there, especially you drivers, that with school getting in, there's kids now back there on the streets and the crosswalks and everything else, man. Please be mindful when you're out there driving. Please, obey the speed limits. Be mindful. Don't be trying to go around the bus. The bus is stopped there, letting these kids off and everything else. You know what I'm saying? We need to adjust our thinking while we're driving so we can make sure and look out for our neighbors.
I love that. Oh, great message.
Real important. Got a lot of local stuff today, but of course, big on the national story is what's going on down in Louisiana with Hurricane Ida. We have a clip right here from CBS this morning.
In Louisiana, where hundreds of thousands of people still have no electricity and not enough water to drink after Hurricane Ida. There are lines to get gasoline, and they are stretching for blocks in many areas, with people standing in the sweltering heat to get fuel for generators. The hardest hit communities include Houma, that is southwest of New Orleans, where entire neighborhoods were shattered. But many people are choosing to stay despite these difficult conditions. Maria Villarreal has more.
Hey, Mama.
Joanne Young says she barely survived Hurricane Ida, riding out the storm in her bedroom as the ceiling came down.
You were in here when the first part came down? The first part came down and hit me on the back of my neck.
At 62, she's been through several hurricanes, but this one's done the most damage. The storm wiped away her precious family photos.
I couldn't see a platform. I cried. It hurt. It hurt to me, to my heart. Wow. To let My things go away.
Almost every room has water damage. She has no electricity and her food is spoiled.
It hurts to be in here like this.
But instead of evacuating and heading to a local shelter, she's staying put, nervous about being in a confined space with no air conditioning amid a surge in COVID-19 cases. There are only 41 shelters in the whole state, and over 2,000 people are staying in them. Water distribution centers like this one are essential to many people in Homa who have no clean running water.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Our supplies are running low on water, and there's no stores open. And if you have to go to the store, you have to drive at least an hour away to get to supplies.
It's been horrible. No air conditioning, no power, nothing.
April Budos rode out the storm with her 3 kids. Her home suffered damage, but she says staying to help neighbors however you can is a way of life in Louisiana.
We got together and we were like, whoever needs help, ask.
Providing the comforts of home as the rebuilding begins. For CBS This Morning, Mireya Villarreal, Homa, Louisiana.
It shows you the worst of times brings out the best in people.
Yeah, I think Gail is absolutely correct right there that, you know, when we think about what it means to care for our neighbors, our loved ones, to be reaching out to people as they're experiencing traumatic losses and damage to their homes, livelihoods, food supplies running low. All of this is really, really, something that brings a lot of people together. Oh, and the great thing is that they were able to capture that in that story right there. You know, this is a trying time for all of them down there right now.
Yeah, you know, the thing about these hurricanes, a lot of these natural disasters, and when I was living down south, went through quite a few hurricanes in North Carolina, quite a few catastrophic ones. Man, there's so many like poor people who, I mean, they lose everything. And, you know, a lot of stuff, Louisiana might be a little different where they consider the floodplain or not, but a lot of stuff, you know, regular insurance won't cover if you have the insurance. And I mean, it's a tough time down there. There's lots of different ways to help. We'll actually put some resources up on our website for different people who might want to assist with the relief effort down there in Louisiana.
Yeah, this is the time for us to come together as a country for sure.
Yeah, and speaking of helping people, you know, we caught up with Rainier Beach High School legend Jamal Crawford. Jamal Crawford was out there at Rainier Beach High School the other day, and he teamed up with World Vision, and they did a backpack giveaway out there at RB.
If we can kind of lift that burden off the parents and make those kids feel like, you know, they belong and they can thrive in the same situation and inspire, I think that's what it's about.
Well, this is the 12th annual Jamal Crawford back distribution, and so we're just making sure that every family that comes through gets a backpack filled with school supplies.
Continue to have compassion for people, whether you know them, whether you don't. I think the compassion, it speaks volumes, you know, and I think it's contagious, to be honest with you. You know, somebody may leave here feeling good about something else. They may help somebody else in a different way. You know, you're always looking for the right partnerships. And to me, this was one that was easy. It was a no-brainer because they have the same vision that I have. They care about people. They're always putting people's needs first. For us, at this point, we've done so many different things together. But to continue to have that partnership and continue to have the vision and continue to try to make people's lives just a little bit better, that's what I'm about.
I love that. You know, this goes back to what we were saying in terms of how people show up for one another. You know, he said it right there. Continue to make people's lives better. And when you have the ability to do so, that's what it's all about. I mean, I love how I'm seeing our folks step up in their communities that really made them and raised them, right, to do this kind of work, man. They're seeing themselves as part of the solution. You know, I love it all.
Yeah, no, big shout out. You know, Jamal Crawford, his 12th year of this, the Jamal Crawford Family Foundation. And those of us here in Seattle know that it's been consistent for Jamal Crawford. Clearly, whether he was in the NBA and now that he's no longer in the NBA, he's kept this commitment to community, you know, in Rainier Beach High School. Last week, we were talking about Trey Simmons, who went to Garfield High School. And these stories are important. And Jamal's definitely made the big news stories. And course, you know, Jamal, you know, a 20-year career in the NBA. Trey Simmons didn't make the local news stories or the local news stations, but it's important here at Converge that we continue to uplift these stories, because we get bombarded with a narrative that we can't to do for ourselves, that we can't look out for each other, that we can't be there for each other, that somebody has to save us, the government has to do this and that. And with Trey Simmons and with Jamal Crawford, we see perfect examples of community rising to the occasion to support community. And the best thing is, it's not a photo op, it's not this and that, it's continuous effort. I remember we talked to Jamal Crawford, it's going on 2 years now, when we talked to him over on Jackson Street, and we talked about, like, yeah, this is the stuff that people know about, but the contributions that, like, Jamal Crawford Family Foundation makes that people will never hear about. It was the same thing. Remember when we talked to the Trufants, Marcus and Jessica Trufant. Of course, they have their foundation, and you see things that kind of make the news and everything else, but it's the consistent work in community, you know, and I really think that it's important that we continuously uplift stories of community helping community and not government coming in to save community.
You know, I agree wholeheartedly. And I think that's so much of what I love about, you know, community media and Converge in particular is that we're making an intentional effort to always do that, right? And it's also because we're connected to a lot of the folks that are behind these efforts. It goes back to, for me, the relationships that are there. You know, Big O could just call up Jamal Crawford and say, hey, man, you know, we're going to come and we're going to film this. You know, we can hit up Trey Simmons and say, hey, we're going to film this. I mean, when we saw, you know, our guy Trey Lamont over at the Jerk Shack doing things for other restaurants, you know, during this COVID time and finding a way to be there for his employees, it's like we can call him up and say, hey, let's make sure we're showcasing that. I mean, this is really, for me, it goes back to, you know, really being relational as a community media outlet, and really folks know that we're going to get the stories right. And I think that that's another level of comfortability that they have with having Big O on the scene, having Trey on the scene, right? Having Converge Media, our producers, our folks that are out there doing the work, you know, with us and alongside us. To be honest, that's another beautiful part for me too.
Yeah, and big shout out to Steve and to Salman, who actually went out there and covered that. And you're right, it's a lot of love with Jamal. I sent Jamal a message because a lot of times it's me out in the field and I couldn't make it out there. I was like, yo, Steve's coming, Salman's coming. He was like, bring him on. Yeah. And then as soon as it was over with, Jamal Crawford sent me back a message like, man, I loved you guys. You know, and also I want to take this opportunity as well, because of course, Jamal Crawford and Trey Simmons are very high profile in community. There's a lot of people that are doing work in community. Man, send me an email. You know, let us uplift you. Let us spotlight your efforts. Let us let people know what you're doing and what's out there. Maybe we can drive resources and hands. It's, you know, it's an African proverb, you know, many hands makes light work. So, you know, if you're out there impacting community and you need some uplift, if you need a spotlight, email me directly, Omari, OMARI, at whereweconverge.com. And let's see how we can get one of these camera crews out there and talk about the good work that you're doing in the community.
I love that. You know, I mean, this is something that I find hitting my line often. And anytime we can bring folks in here, either on the morning update show, I'm sharing the calendar event submission form, right? Because there's a lot of great work happening. And for me, that's really one of the most exciting parts about our work here on the morning update show, is being able to spotlight it.
All right, good stuff. Keeping it in a good tone. We got the good stuff here in the early part of the show, and then we're going to take a break. We're going to talk about this ongoing issue with gun violence here in our city. But over the weekend, me and Steve were up there on 23rd and Jackson. This was Black on the Block. It was organized by Africatown Community Land Trust. And we spoke to quite a few businesses. And so we're going to have some of these different segments coming out. But here, as promised, here's God Body Soaps.
My name is Ebony. I'm the owner and maker at God Body Soaps. God Body Soaps is about natural soap and skincare products and self-reverence for men and women who want to take better care of themselves and make more time for self-care. All of my products are made with natural, organic, sustainable ingredients. So I decided maybe I should start selling these things since, you know, I'm investing quite a bit in them and people seem really interested. in wanting to take care of themselves and do so more naturally. So I looked into making it a business, had a lot of support from my family at home and my kids that are here with me today. And we launched in February of 2021. So I make sure a lot of my packaging and my products are able to be reused or composted responsibly. Check us out on Instagram or Facebook at God Body Soaps, and we have a website, www.godbodysoaps.com. I do shipping nationally, internationally is coming soon.
Wow. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Oh, you know, Black on the Block, shout out to all of the organizers over at ACLT and others who really poured into making that event what it was and making it happen. Again, I think that we have some amazing community organizations in our midst that are doing this amazing, phenomenal work of uplifting community and providing opportunities for, as we saw there, even new businesses to find a home, right, in community, to be able to share their passion and their gifts and their services and products with folks who can really appreciate them, who will probably become longtime customers. I know for me, you know, one of the things that I love, and I say it's my way of paying the fee, is that I'm always shopping at these events. I'm always finding some amazing products. I was able to get some great candles and whipped butter and whipped soaps. And there was so many great things out there. Of course, clothes for me too is a big deal. But I think that it's really great to be able to spotlight these vendors and these businesses. And for some of them, the great thing about it is that it's their first time out. So, you know, shout out to Africatown all around for being a real anchor in this community, and folks knowing that they can follow Africatown, they can figure out, hey, well, what's going next? What can I do next? How can I be involved and engaged? That's what it's all about, man, because those events would be nothing if we didn't have those vendors showing up and people showing up to support those vendors. So it's a great work.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things that I've found in attending a lot of these events around the city is how many new businesses there are. There are so many new businesses, and I mean, whether it was that thing up there on Beacon Hill, or whether it's an Africatown event, or different events around the city, we see. I'm gonna use one of your favorite words, Trey Holiday. We see the resiliency in our community. There are so many young new entrepreneurs, and we need to also take this opportunity to push back on the narrative that, oh, we sitting here hopeless, and we sitting here, you know, everybody's looking for COVID relief. You know, I wish they are. I mean, a lot of people are, but you know, people were like, hey man, I ain't got no job. My job shut down, everything else. I'm gonna go and build a business. We see this with Black Sunflower, with their candles. We see this with God Body Soaps. We see this. I mean, it's on and on. You guys will see this in quite a few more segments coming. That people took this opportunity. We also often say, you know, crisis also creates opportunity, and people went through this crisis of COVID-19 and found an opportunity in their entrepreneurial spirit. I won't go off. We're going to stay on message today, but it comes back to the fact that we didn't come out here as beggars. You know what I'm saying? We came out here as industrious entrepreneurs into the Pacific Northwest, and people trying to forge their new path and everything else. So it's within the lived experience of Black people here in the Pacific Northwest to get out there, make it happen. Let me try this business. And, you know, it is a two-way street as well, because these small businesses, a lot of them just started as pop-ups, but when you talk to them, they were like, because of events that like Africatown puts on, and because of events that go out in the South End and everything else, there's enough interaction out there with the consumers that they were like, okay, I can make this an actual business. And so community organizations also created a fertile ground for people to step out there and to launch their business, to kind of test the market, this and that. They would pop up, and now people are in business. They've invested, you see there, they've invested in packaging, and invested in, you know what I'm saying, in website. They've invested in all these kind of things. They only felt safe about that investment because they were able to go out and test the market, because community organizations created the space. I mean, another one was the Beat Walk, Columbia City Beat Walk. Those guys, when we were out there, so many vendors that are out there as well. So I want to give a big shout out to all the different community organizations out here who are creating that fertile ground for these new entrepreneurs who are bold and brave and industrious, who are stepping out and they're launching their business, and it's the perfect marriage that's happening and it's occurring. And so a big shout out to the business owners and the community organizations.
You know, I can't agree with you more. I'm beaming over here because, you know, being able to be a part of so much of the planning and behind the scenes, you know, we realize, man, now, you know, folks have lists of almost over 200 vendors that have participated in these various events. There's so many people that are taking this time to be innovative. And that is such a resounding characteristic of Black community. And I'm going to be very specific about Black community because that's what I know. And so I got to say that, you know, we think about making a way out of no way. That's what this is about, man. It's like, look, like O said, my job shut down. Now I'm going to do this business. But the thing of it is that we don't get down on ourselves. And really another narrative we have to disrupt is that Black community is waiting around for the government to save them. No, we're not. We are on the ground doing the work. We are staying connected to community. We're being innovative. We're being resilient. All of those things are showcased in these events. So shout out to all you vendors, man, because I know you guys get up earlier than anybody who's shopping with you. You guys got to make sure all the products are right. You guys show up, you guys get your booths. Some of those booths are real creative too. Oh, I got to say, they got their tent, they got this, they got that. They're like, you need a refreshment. They got candy bowls out. So they're finding ways to bring customers in. Again, that innovation is something that I absolutely want to highlight, and I love it so much to see it.
Right. One last thing before we go to break here is also a big shout out to our community members. A lot of them who don't have a lot of money, but they are committed to, you know, buying Black, and they're committed to going to these events and spending money and everything else, and also disrupting another narrative that Black people don't spend money with themselves and Black people don't support themselves. You, the Black community here in Seattle, are spending enough with these small businesses that they went from just solopreneur kind of experimental to now actually being in business and now into manufacturing and everything else. So who knows? Today's a good day. Kick off or disrupt some of these narratives about our community. All right, we're going to take a quick break right now. We're getting ready to shift gears, and we're going back to the topic of gun violence here in the city of Seattle. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
Hey guys, it's Besa Gordon from Converge Media. You can catch me on my show Rewind with Besa, which airs every other Saturday at 2 p.m. anywhere you watch Converge Media. Now, I know a lot of us still have questions about the COVID-19 vaccine. However, here are a couple things you don't have to question. Everyone 12 years and older in Washington State are now eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine. It's free, and you don't even need insurance or citizenship status to get vaccinated. If you still have questions, and I know you probably do, you can visit kingcounty.gov/COVID for additional information. You can also call the King County COVID-19 call center at 206-477-3977 to get COVID-19 and the vaccination questions answered, get translation services if needed, set up an in-home vaccination appointment for yourself or someone you know may not be comfortable at a vaccination site due to a disability, anxiety, or other reasons. Look, with summer being here, now is the time to get all your COVID-19 vaccination questions answered so we can all get out the house and live our best lives again.
Market Street Shoes, slinging kicks since 2006 with styles that support you and yours, getting the F outside or staying comfy when you just want to lounge indoors as well. But wait, Market Street Shoes is way more than just a shoe store. Gear up for your next outdoor adventure with apparel and accessories that'll have you looking good on the streets, the trail, or even in your own backyard. With locations in Ballard, Redmond, and online at marketstreetshoes.com, there's undoubtedly a style and size that'll fit your lifestyle.
All right, welcome back to the morning update show. And now, Trey, unfortunately, this is an ongoing thing for us. Even yesterday, I was right down here on First, over by the 7-Eleven, and somebody got shot on Third. So it was just 2 blocks up on Third and Yesler. There was a shooting yesterday. I mean, it's active, especially down here where we're at. This is a very active area here in Seattle. But Seattle Police Chief Diaz and Seattle City Council member Peterson, they had a presser yesterday, as well as Rex. What was Rex last name?
I think you said John.
I think it's John. Well, from HSD. Don't want to get it wrong. But I mean, man, the chief talked about some numbers that we talked about yesterday. It was crazy. So year to date, police have recovered over 2,000 bullet casings here in the city of Seattle, confiscated 700 guns. And right now, at that pace, the Seattle Police Department is on track to recover 1,000 guns by the end of the year. And this would be for the 5th year in a row, right? And what they're saying is that a lot of the crime, or a lot of this violence here, is fueled around drugs or drug trade. And I think that people now, I mean, you see it for a lot of people who they were living in these neighborhoods where they were supposedly isolated for different reasons. People are getting shot all over the city. And, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's youth and gangs, whether it's road rage, whether it's, robbery. I mean, but it's just occurring, all over the city. But of course, a lot of our concern is for the whole Emerald City, but a lot of our focus is within our own community, because the overall numbers is Black people are the most impacted. Victims, suspects, community, and some of everything else. And so a lot of my question towards Seattle Police Chief Adrian Diaz was about this regional Peacekeepers collective, because what Chief Diaz, and I mentioned this yesterday, Chief Diaz and Councilmember Peterson were clear. They said they need more officers on the street, right? That's their position. Then they're also saying that they want to be able to work with community organizations and investment there. Chief also said something interesting. I'm going to clip that out so I can put it on the show tomorrow, is that, a visible officer doesn't stop all crime, right? I mean, some crime, yeah, but I mean, an officer being visible doesn't also always stop a crime. But he definitely said that they want more police on the street. And like I said, Councilmember Peterson was also echoing that. But he mentioned investment in the regional Peacekeepers collective. That's over there at Zero Youth Detention over at Public Health. Derek Wheeler Smith and Willard Jimerson. We'll play Willard's clip here again today. But I asked Chief Diaz, I was like, okay, well, this is good, Regional Peacekeepers Collective, but do they have the resources that they need to be able to do the job?
Right now, the program is kind of setting up and ramping up, providing training to their staff, and I think they're going to have to assess whether they need additional staff to do that work and find the right people to do that work. It is not an easy level of work because they're dealing with kids in trauma, and I think that there needs to have some time to ramp up and build those programs and create the sustainability factor in many of those programs. But I just don't know if they do have the exact resources and support to help that work continue.
All right. So what Chief Diaz was saying, I mean, people heard right there, is that at the moment he can't assess whether the Regional Peacekeepers Collective has the resources required to do the job. So they're just ramping up, getting all these organizations online, some everything else. I think a lot of people might not realize, and we'll play Willard's clip here in a little bit, is that the Regional Peacekeepers Collective and some of these other people who are violence disruptors and things like that, they're really coming from the perspective of being public health workers. And in some cases, that nature of public health is very dangerous when you're talking about people with guns, people who someone might be trying to shoot, some people who might have shot somebody, and everything else. It's real serious work, and that's why it takes investment to get it off the ground. But this is one of the programs. The city of Seattle invested $1.25 million. We covered that a few weeks ago, and the county has also made an investment into the regional peacekeepers as well.
Yeah, I mean, investment is required, and I think oftentimes too, when to hear what Chief Diaz is talking about there in terms of capacity, so much of this is because what's really necessary is for more people to get on board with this, right? So for those of you that have lived experience that can speak to this, for those of you that can step up and be violence disruptors, be mentors out there on the ground, I mean, this is a call for you. This is a call that you can actually answer. I think, oftentimes people need to really understand the pathways that are available to them to see themselves as part of the solution. And I think that that's a big call here, because a lot of that is driven by community operatives, right? It's people that are on the ground that are working in community with a community-minded approach, and taking it away from, whatever systems are kind of in place and disrupting those systems a bit to showcase that, there's a real centric way of doing this work that does work. And so how do we expand those approaches and strategies? How do we expand it? Well, they need more hands. Oh, that's clear.
Right. That's true. And some of those hands definitely come. I mean, in resourcing this program, hands come. It's a financial, it's an ask, it's investment. But let's not forget, we can't let our community off the hook. And this is one of the things that people seem to leave out when we talk about this issue of gun violence and gun violence disruption in our community. We talk about the shooters or the perpetrators. We talk about the police, and we talk about the groups that disrupt them. There is a big group that's missing, ladies and gentlemen. That's us, our community. It's us. And I'll continue to say that it's not all right. Our mamas and Big Mama and them is riding the link light rail next to murderers, because community won't do their part. Community, you know what I'm saying? I mean, we're quick to I would say it all the time. We need to look out the window to give credit and look in the mirror to take responsibility. And so there's some responsibility that we as community need to take as well. And, I don't have all the answers here, but I do know that as individual community members, if we don't get involved here in what's going on, then we'll never actually get the total solution that is required. And I know, like back in the day, you'd be like, oh, well, parents need to be doing this and that or whatever. And we need to come to the realization that there is a generation out there that, kind of grew up parentless. There is not a support in home. There might not be other things that are out there. And, in the past, that's where community came and bridged the gap. There are people that know exactly what's going on. There's parents out there who know what their kids is up to. There's adults out there who are telling young people to go shoot, go do this and that. You know what I'm saying? Here's your initiation. Look at these unsolved murders that are out there. And a lot of it is, community cannot absolve itself from what's occurring and what's impacting us. I think clearly everybody has a role. Law enforcement has a role. The violence disruptors, and the work that they're doing, all these organizations that are out there. But we, the individual community members, we have a part to play as well.
I think you're absolutely right, 100%. Oh, and we've talked about this before, and I agree, because ultimately, we have to be a part of all of this. When I'm saying, see yourself as part of the solution, it includes all of us. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't fall on the shoulders of just those who are doing the work. It falls on the shoulders of the conversations that we're having at the dinner table with our families. It really is like when we're caring for our families, we see that there's a decrease in this. There's a lot of different strategies and approaches that have tried to showcase it through data and numbers, because sometimes that's all that people understand is like what has worked in the past. Well, what's worked is us having thriving communities. It's us being able to be a part of solutions. It's us caring for our people, our young folks, our folks in the middle. It's us getting away from the mentality of poverty-driven states where we can actually see ourselves having livable wage incomes, doing what we need to do, launching businesses, as we just talked about, right? Now, maybe you're one of those folks, I don't want want to work for the man type. That's okay. You don't have to. You can create a business. You can put your ingenuity into gear, and you can allow that to drive how you're going to bring money into your family and how you're going to support yourself. I think you're absolutely right, Omari, when you talk about community stepping up and being engaged in this. Don't wait until it's one of your family members that's affected by this gun violence. Be a part of the solution by being there for all of these folks and making sure that the young people in your lives understand that they are brilliant, they are gifted. So many times what we see is that there's a lack of, care and love being poured into some folks that make them think this is the only way that they have, the only option they have. And Sean Good talked about not being able to be part of the primary economy. And so we see secondary economies being created out of this. When you talk about much of this gun violence being around drug-related charges and drug-related offenses, or people feeling disrespected through different kinds of situations, that's what we're talking about here. We need to actually be able to be educated so that we can make informed decisions on how we can see ourselves to disrupt all of this.
Yeah. And, we need to do better in our messaging in our community as well. Because we got people who, as a young person, when I was younger, my first job working for a company, I was out cutting yards and stuff when I was a kid. My first job was at the McDonald's underneath the Space Needle. And I was 13 and kind of fudged a little bit, said I was 14 so I could get a work permit and go work. And it was McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? Getting ready to go in high school. It wasn't a cool job. It was McDonald's. But even though I would be sitting there kind of shamed like I'm working at McDonald's, people in the community was like, boy, that's good. You got a job. You know what I'm saying? That's good. You got X, Y, and Z. Like, older people reinforced the fact that this was okay. This was a good thing. We got a lot of people who are influential in our community right now who, laugh somebody off. Oh, word, you working at McDonald's? I worked there, and one of the best lessons that I ever learned at 13 years old, the manager's name was Dana. That'll tell you, it was so impactful. He said, Omari, when you come to work, put life's problems in your pocket, do your job. They'll still be there when you leave. But the whole point is that life lessons learned. I went to work, and the community around me built value in me, in my self-esteem of being like, yeah, boy, that's good. You got a job. That's good that you're over there. So, we need to also address how we're messaging in our community, how we're messaging. And man, I think I turned out pretty good for a kid that started off at McDonald's.
Yeah, come on, man. You're absolutely right. This is something that I love to see now that my son is 15. He's like, all right, he plays basketball, which is a strenuous schedule for him, but he already has that mindset of, man, what can I do to start making money? He was looking up jobs when he was 14, and he was like, okay, I need to be at least 15 and a half. So now he's at that place where he's like, all right, let me start tipping my toes in this water. I'm like, hey, look, my very first job was at Safeway on East John, and I was a courtesy clerk. I was bagging groceries. I was getting carts, no problem. And just like you said, there were so many people that poured into me about how great of a decision that was for me to step out and become a part of the workforce. And I think messaging is key, because that's why when we're thinking about the ways that we pour care and love into young people, so much of it is that we can't be shunning the ways that people have to actually learn lessons and create understanding about responsibility. So much of this is that, right, we got to be responsible. And as young folks, you guys now have an opportunity to engage into the workforce as young adults.
Yeah, I'm not letting grown folks off the hook around this issue. There's this impact in our community. I'm not letting grown folks off the hook. We need to do our part in our communities all around. It's a lot of work to do, but it's a lot. This is a big issue that we have right here. Because even those who aren't directly, murdered by gun violence or injured or something like that, just the mentality of of a lot of the ways that things are going, it's not healthy for us. It's not healthy for our community. And you know what? This is one of the biggest things that we need to take back from our community is it's like, man, the Seattle Police Department has a part to play, but they're not going to solve the issues in our community. We have to do that. Now, one big part, though, and what we see here with this issue of gun violence in the city, and we've been talking about it for months and months and months. You hear that? Yeah, me neither. I was waiting for like elected officials to speak on this issue. You know what I'm saying? But we don't hear them, and we don't see or hear a big sense of even empathy. And I keep saying that you don't have to have a political strategist to man, show some humanity, to acknowledge the humanity of people that are impacted. Something dawned on me last night. I got a message from Alicia Dasa, and she was saying that on Saturday that the Rainier Beach, the football team, they're gonna honor Connor. And I thought about it. I was like, look at all these young people additionally who are affected or impacted. This is a ripple of people and community members, young, old, that are impacted. And you would think that people in an elected position, if nothing else, could acknowledge that impact to our collective humanity when these things are happening in our community. Something else that's interesting as well is that we get so many politicians and aspiring politicians who are up there on the north end, and that's an important issue, Bitter Lake, that encampment and everything else, and they're saying that it's a danger for children and all these things. We're here, you had a 17-year-old shot by a 14-year-old at a school. That's not dangerous for kids. Where's the uproar? Where's the press conferences? Where's the junkets? Where's everything else? So anyways, Alex Peterson was there, and I asked Alex Peterson, Councilmember Peterson, why city council members have been so quiet around this very important issue.
I think that all the city council members are very concerned about whenever there's a surge in violence. They all care about this, and I think that they are, we will be taking action on September 13th for the mid-year budget so that we can decide how to best allocate dollars for public safety. I hope to see more of the funds going toward recruiting and retaining officers. I think that there is work going on with parts of city government. I think that we want to also work collaboratively with our police department so that we let the frontline workers know that we care about them. We want them to stay with the department so that we can have enough staffing. And so I think we'll see more in the middle of next month in terms of where we want to allocate those dollars. But in the meantime, to be supportive of all our frontline workers.
Now, I think Alex Peterson, Councilmember Peterson, nice guy, but why he decided to fall on his sword for all the rest of the city council members, I have no idea. When the general public, like, hello, we're the public, we know who's vocal and who's visible around this issue of gun violence. And Councilmember Peterson felt the need to, like I said, fall on his sword for all the rest of the council members, many of who, not all, but many of who've been very non-existent, on this issue. And I always like to point out to people that every district has three city council members. You have the one that represents your district, and we also have 2 citywide council members. So you got 3 for every district here. But according to Councilmember Peterson, they're all very concerned and they all care. But also, I think that he probably missed a point of that question. He equated caring into dollars, which it is. People, you put money where your values are and what you believe in. So that's important. But I don't think that Councilmember Peterson got the other part of the question of like why people are quiet. So yeah, you can go and put the taxpayers' money in a budget, but you speaking upon the impacts of our society and our humanity and everything else doesn't have anything to do with budget or dollars. It just has to do with you using your voice and your platform to acknowledge what's occurring in this city.
Yeah. And once again, when we think about transparency and empathy of our elected officials, oftentimes there's so much protection around controlling the ways that you show up. And so unfortunately, we don't see enough of that just being authentically them. When I think about people who experience gun violence in their families, then you have a personal story, you have a personal narrative, and there's something that's driving you that is from within, right? And really, as a council member, representing a district, representing a city, you have an opportunity to always show up authentically as yourself. That's what makes people believe in you more and more as a council member or as an elected official. I think when we think about the system of elections in general, of government, from a community perspective, oftentimes that is what bodes a lot of the mistrust that is out there, because people are waiting for, people to speak up. I mean, Omari was out there saying it in the chop. Where are people at? The ones who are paid to do this, our elected officials, like, where are people at? We're saying it again, and we're seeing a lack of that standing up and championing these issues as your own, because these are people that are in your district, in your city, that are experiencing this. The fact that we don't see enough of you being out there to just speak publicly on this, to call up a parent like Donita Sinclair and say, you know what happened to your son Lorenzo was absolutely unnecessary, and it was not cool, and I'm here to stand by you. I'm here to stand beside you as a mother, as a father, as a parent, as a council member, as an elected official. I'm here because I'm a person, I'm a human, and I care about, the issues that you're experiencing. That right there is what we're not seeing,
Yeah, I think it was one of those when you brought up Donita. It was like Congresswoman, it was Jayapal.
Yes.
Sent Donita a letter talking about how sad she was about the loss of her son. And as Donita, who elected around here, actually reached out. Now you had a congressperson reach out. But now the other thing that I want to bring up is the tone of Chief Diaz and the tone of Councilmember Peterson. We're like, hey man, this is urgent. You know what I'm saying? This is an epidemic. This is impacting the city. And I mean, the thing is, Trey, that although you like to bring it up, King County Council Member Gurmai Zahalai, like, hey man, we need to treat this like COVID. There's a blueprint and everything else. And you're kind of getting people echoing that, and we're hearing that out of the county and definitely out of public health. But until you get buy-in, and this is what we need to remember, that around COVID, you had every city council member on the same message, on the exact same. Everybody was in unison on their messaging. And even right now, if you talk to them, they're probably still the same, same talking points or whatever it might be from public health or anything else. But you had people vocal. Council members were trying to out-vocalize each other to show, no, I'm giving more information about COVID than you, and I'm more, hey, go do this and that. And so it isn't like it's not in them. We've seen it before. COVID's given us a blueprint of how we can attack a lot of things. And, I'm no expert on the actual architecture. There's experts that are out there, people of public health and everything else. I consider myself maybe an expert around messaging, but I do. And with that sense, I would say that until you get all these people on the same message, until you get them on the same frequency and the same willingness to want to really talk about this in the way that it needs to be addressed, then it's only going to be an issue, at least on the downtown level here, of when it's a surge. See, other thing is, Chief Burst said when they started it, they're addressing the recent surge in gun violence, right? But a lot of us, that surge never stopped. You see what I'm saying? So maybe for other people around the city, they're like, oh, it's a surge. But some of us live in a community where it's been consistent. But see, the surge brought on this question and answer. And I will say it was good yesterday to be able to, a lot of media on there to have a question and answer. But you got to get everybody else on board.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is that part that's really disheartening, I think, for many folks in community, because as community rallies behind a council member who does champion something, like we've seen, with Council Member Gurmai Zahalai many times, community rallying behind it. If the rest of King County Council is not on board, it will not move, right? And so, there's some element there that then also bodes to, you know, some of these council members and elected officials that, hey, I'm going to champion things that I know that I can win on, because ultimately for them, so much of the legacy that they're building as an elected official, it goes back to what were they able to accomplish in their seat, what it was that they were able to do. And that gets really, really disheartening for many of us in Black community in particular, because is our voice loud enough? Are you not hearing it enough? Even when we talk about something as simple as police reform, we're talking about doing direct investment into communities. It wasn't just about defunding police, which got messed up in the language. And then you had Barack Obama coming out and saying, well, I don't know if defund is the right word. At the end of the day, it was really about the investment that was necessary to embolden and to strengthen and to scale up community approaches that do work, like this regional approach. This is another example of what we can be doing when we're talking about how we get enough hands on the ground to be there for these young people, to talk them off the ledge, to get them to have a different approach and strategy around conflict resolution. That's what we're seeing a lot of this. It starts with a simple conflict. And when we have people that are out there saying, this is how we're going to deal with this conflict, right? When we have more and more Coach Doms, Willard Jimersons, you know, Sean Goods out there, even Andre Franklin with Bill 206, there are so many different ways to pivot from the mind frame that gun violence is all you have as an option. And that's the stuff that needs that direct investment. Those are the institutions and entities that need more hands on the ground. Yes, you know, I hear Chief Diaz and I hear Councilmember Peterson saying this is why we need more police, but I gotta push back on that a little bit and say that really what community was saying with the resounding voice with the protests of last year was that we need to redirect so much of the funding that goes to SPD into other solutions that work. And this is what I'm talking about, that 1.25 million, you know, the county matching it, that's the beginning, as Coach Dom said. That's not the end.
Right. Well, I'll say a few things here. Is that one, you named a lot of great organizations that we definitely uplift here all the time, and the work they're doing on the street. But we also have to uplift the people who are doing prevention. People like Fathers and Sons Together, like Kathy and Larry Wilmore, who are providing stuff well before. And I think this sometimes that the people prevention's been forgotten. You know, there was so much stuff before. I remember I used to go to so many programs and so many things were invested in before. And, you know, I mean, the way it is right now, in some cases, it's like, it's easier to get resources, unfortunately, if you've been into the system than if you haven't been into the system. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was hard to get somebody to pay just for the PSAT. Your parents couldn't afford the PSAT. It was like $35. Wasn't nobody out there with the $35. You see what I'm saying? So there is a part when we're talking about resources going into community and everything else, that we can't forget about upstream, and we can't forget about these people who've worked tirelessly on the total prevention side and put investment there. The other thing that I was going to say, though, as well, is that our community it's only us who's faced with the option of public safety or investment in community. You know, because I mean, that's really a lot of what that argument is. It's like, okay, well, we want to take away from public safety and we want to invest in community. You know, there's nobody else. You know, I mean, are they really having that debate? You know what I'm saying? And maybe Magnolia, are they really having that debate? You know, in Alki? But for us, we're like, man, we're going to take away from public safety and we're going to invest in community. How come there can't be both? You know, why do we have to make that decision to where, okay, well, it has to be one of, why can't, I mean, this is one of the wealthiest cities in America. And, you know, I just, it's just interesting to me that like, we have to make that decision. You know what I'm saying? I think that however, like even on the whatchamacallit, the super block, it should happen. But shouldn't it happen no matter what? You get what I'm saying? You should get the investment into the super block no matter what. The investment should happen. And, you know, I think that sometimes we get pulled into this, that it has to be one or the other. We should be able to demand that, yes, we want safe communities, and yes, we want investment in our community.
I I agree. Oh, I mean, it shouldn't be either or. And ultimately, I think that so much of this has been that, a lot of folks have identified that the ways that policing in terms of this country providing the peace and safety, that's kind of where you get some questions around that, because we have too many of our community members that do not agree that that's the only way to have peace and safety. So I think you're right when you talk about it being both and, it really does need to be that. And oftentimes we need to understand and identify what some of those new measures around peace and safety really are, and make sure that investments are going there. I think as a city, one of the great things about it, and even as a state, again, we are leading the nation when it comes to reforms, when it comes to reimagining policing, all of those terms, we are actually leading the nation. And I think that there's some real grounding in terms of legislation and policy that we get to stand on as a state to showcase to the rest of the nation some of the things that can be done. But when I hear arguments out there that like, oh, Washington is the #1 state where police don't want to come because of those reforms and because of the accountability measures that are now put in place, that's the stuff that concerns an everyday citizen, an everyday community member who says, you mean to tell me that now that in Washington state, we're holding police more accountable, that they're not able to just go from one city to another with this, kind of track record of abuse and over abuse of power, that those are the kind of things that make me go, wow, is that what policing is built on? So we have to really be able to identify all of the measures around this so that we do not replicate the systems that don't work. And ultimately, I think Omari is 100% right. It needs to be a both and approach, because we shouldn't have to pick from one or the other. Both things need that investment. And honestly, right now, when we're talking about this uptick in gun violence, both things are very critical.
No, 100%. It looks like we're already here to the top of the hour, which probably means that hopefully we had a good discussion here. I did want to give a big shout out to Eric Wilson, Eric Calligraphy, and getting ready to launch a gun violence disruption campaign. And, I think that if people have been following along with Eric through our journey here, this is somebody who's lost so many loved ones and friends just in the last 18 months here in Seattle. I mean, it was well over 10 the last time that we checked in. And Eric's been able to channel the pain and the anguish and everything else into something very creative and productive that they're going to be rolling out here throughout the city as a campaign to disrupt gun violence and also around building self-esteem into our young people. So we look forward to having Eric here on the Morning Update show to tell everybody about it. Top of the hour, Trey Holiday, any last words?
For me, man, see yourself as part of the solution. It's clear when we talk about the opportunities that are out there for you, no matter where you come from, what your background is, your perspective, your lived experience. We need everybody to be a part of these amazing solutions that are happening on the ground. And that's how we create sustainability and long-term solutions, is by you adding your voice to the pot. So please see yourself as part of the solution.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it was real interesting here in the comments today in today's show. And so I want to thank everybody for making your voice heard in the comments. And we got to do better at getting comments on the screen. But we'll work on that. Yeah. But I do also, before we get out of here, yesterday it was people back home might not notice. It was a bit shaky for us here yesterday. And we've got these young directors here. We got a young director named Salman, and yesterday might have been his only first, second, third show flying solo here. But it's important for us, Convert. We just throw you in the fire, man. I mean, it's the best way to learn is to get out there, and we want to continue to uplift and embolden these young people, man. And Trey Holiday, we need to give Salman a hand. What a flawless show today,
there
huh?
It is. Absolutely. Great job,
good job, Salman.
Yeah.
Good job. Flawless. I mean, man, and when you talk about resiliency and bounce back, yeah, Salman bounced back, man, just like a champ from yesterday. Good job, kiddo. Good job over there. All right. So today's Wednesday?
Yeah.
It's Wednesday already. Okay. So that means that tonight, 7:00 at Seattle News, Views, and Brews with Brian Callanan and the very wordy and nerdy Kevin Schofield. So we got that going on tomorrow. Clapback Culture, Mike Davis to be here in the studio. So lots of good stuff coming up with that. We got lots of video to put out online. So we got a lot of stuff that's coming over to YouTube and Instagram. And we're going to put that God Body Soap clip up too. So you guys support Black business. I think that's it for now. This discussion will definitely continue around gun violence. Oh, okay. The other directors over there. Sleepless in Seattle. There we go. That's this Sunday. It's getting closer. The links are there in the comments. That's our director, Curtis Delgado II, creative event out there at Seward Park on Sunday. So, you know what I'm saying? We want to go ahead and be supportive of that. You know, we can support these young people. That's, you know what I'm saying? Like, man, we got to uplift these guys. I'm so excited to, like, get behind all these guys and push them and be supportive and be firm when we need to. But on that note, I guess we'll get out of here right now since we're over time. Want to say again that we appreciate you. We're thankful for you. And we're going to remind you to go forward in your purpose. Go forward in your humanity. And until tomorrow at 11 a.m., peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day.